the early 1930s, long before television or the internet, America had one man who claimed he could see beyond time itself. Edgar Cayce. Known as the sleeping prophet, he would enter a trance and speak of events centuries ahead. But there was one vision he never intended to be made public, a prophecy so unsettling that even his closest followers tried to bury it. It spoke of a ruler who would build walls not just of stone, but of fear, a man who would rise in pride and fall before his purpose was complete. What Cayce said next about the world that came after this man changed everything they thought they knew about the future of America. It was a gray morning in Virginia Beach, 1934. The air outside hummed with the sound of the tide, but inside Cayce's small study, the only sound was his slow, steady breathing. His secretary, Gladys Davis, sat poised with pen and paper, ready to record another session. No one in that room knew that what he was about to say would vanish from the archives for nearly a century. As he slipped into trance, his voice deepened, distant, as though another spoke through him. A voice shall rise who speaks with fire, dividing brother from brother, and nations from within, he murmured. He shall promise strength, but his own heart will be split in two. Gladys froze. Cayce had often warned of coming conflicts, but never had he spoken with such sharp precision. When will this come to pass? She asked softly. Cayce's lips trembled. When the towers of pride have fallen, he said, and the eagle forgets its own wings, then shall the builder of barriers rise. For decades, this session was lost, hidden in mislabeled folders and unrecorded transcriptions, until nearly 70 years later, a single yellowed page surfaced in a box of unrelated agricultural notes. The handwriting was unmistakable, and what it described sent chills through every researcher who read it. The page told of a future leader whose words would ignite both devotion and hatred, whose rise would mirror the soul of a fractured nation. He shall stir the dust of division, the text read, and though his throne be high, it shall not endure. The earth beneath him shall tremble, for the spirit of the people will no longer bow to spectacle. But Cayce's prophecy did not end with that man's fall. He spoke of what would follow, an age of confusion and awakening. After the builder falls, he said, a shadow shall pass across the land. The markets shall flicker, the cries of the proud shall fade, the veil shall lift, and the people shall hunger not for gold, but for meaning. Researchers called this passage the second vision. He described the time after, an America stripped of illusion, where the faith in money and machines would falter. The coin shall lose its promise, he said, and men shall see the cost of their comfort. He foresaw a night of reflections, a global reckoning when nations would be forced to look into their own creations. The net of light shall cover the earth, Cayce said, eerily predicting the rise of the internet. And within its weave shall dwell both truth and deception, bound together like shadow and flame. Men shall forget which is which, until the lie grows tired of itself. In his trance, Cayce saw chaos not as an ending, but as a mirror. When comfort turns to confusion, he warned, the soul awakens. He spoke of cities flickering like dying candles, of voices once silenced returning to the streets, and of a spiritual hunger unlike any seen before. And then came a new figure, a woman, quiet yet unyielding. From the dust of pride shall rise a voice unseen, Cayce said. She will not claim a crown, but carry a light, not of power, but of conscience. Many who later studied the text believe this woman represented more than one person, perhaps an entire generation of awakening, guided not by control, but by compassion. Others thought Cayce foresaw a real leader, someone outside the system, destined to ignite renewal after collapse. He warned that this transformation would not come peacefully. A house shall shake, he said. The banners of old power shall fall, and hands unknown shall raise a new one. For Cayce, this was the true rebirth of the American spirit, not through dominance, but through humility. The eagle must bow, he whispered, before it can soar again. He called the next era the covenant of light, a time when wealth would no longer be measured in currency, but in creation. He who teaches shall be as rich as he who builds, he said, and the greatest gift shall be the giving of wisdom. In his vision, cities became communities once more, circles of cooperation rather than walls of ideology. Technology, once used for control, became a tool for connection. The net of light was reborn as a mirror of understanding, a living memory of human spirit. The machine shall learn to feel, he said, and man shall learn to listen. Cayce foresaw children born in that dawn, the keepers of memory, he called them, souls who would come not to inherit, but to reimagine the earth. They would not see color, border, or creed, but the spark of unity within all beings. They shall speak the new tongue, Cayce said, the language of heart and hand. He believed these children would rebuild not through conquest, but through creation, blending technology and spirit into harmony. They shall draw energy from the breath of the sky, he said. Their art shall heal, their knowledge shall serve, their light shall remember. But he also foresaw a final trial, a temptation disguised as perfection. Even in light, he warned, the shadow remembers its hunger. Humanity would once again face the lure of control, to trade freedom for order, to shape all minds into one. When the children forget that freedom is sacred, Cayce said, the wheel will turn once more. Yet he ended not in despair, but in radiance. In his final words, Cayce described a world bathed in golden dawn. Truth shall walk the earth, he said, not as one man, but as all mankind remembering. The dawn shall not come from the east, he whispered, but from within each soul. Every heart shall be its own sunrise. To this day, scholars debate whether this reading was genuine or an inspired forgery. But whether real or imagined, its resonance is undeniable. It speaks of a nation divided by pride, redeemed by humility, reborn through awareness. And perhaps that's the real message Cayce left for us. Not prediction, but invitation. Because the prophecy was never about one man's fall. It was about what comes after. So the question remains, are we living through the night of reflections right now? And if so, will we awaken before the dawn comes? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Because maybe the prophecy isn't about the future at all. Maybe it's about us, right here, right now. After Cayce's passing, the house in Virginia Beach became a silent sanctuary, a place where seekers would come to feel the echoes of a mind that had reached beyond time. But among the forgotten stacks of papers and notebooks, there remained folders that Cayce had sealed with a single instruction, to be opened only in the era when the world would face a mirror of itself. These folders bore a date, 2020, and in the corner, the initials GD, Gladys Davis. It was she who had recorded every trance, every word, every subtle inflection of his voice. She had dedicated decades of her life to the careful preservation of his prophecies, knowing that the truths contained within might only resonate generations later. One cold morning, while dust motes drifted through the sunlight, falling across the floorboards of the old study, Gladys opened one such folder. Inside, she found a manuscript written in Cayce's unmistakable hand, a text unlike anything she had ever encountered before. It spoke of a second awakening, one that would unfold long after the political upheavals of the 21st century, when cities glow like stars fallen to earth, and humanity chases the reflection of knowledge without comprehension. The true test shall not come from power, but from the absence of it. The spirit must awaken before the mind can recognize its own reflection. The words were a whisper from the future, yet they reverberated like thunder. Cayce described a society drowning in the constant chatter of information, a world where truth and illusion would mingle so seamlessly that few could discern one from the other. Men will measure the world not by what is real, but by what they are shown to believe. He spoke of a period he called the era of double shadows, an age in which perception itself would fracture. People would witness the same events yet interpret them in entirely different ways. The hour will come when enemies are invisible, defined not by flags or armies, but by the whispers of certainty in their voices. Cayce noted the eeriness of the timing. Cayce had predicted the rise of technologies that would connect humanity globally. Yet these very tools, he warned, would also amplify deception and discord. The web of light shall encircle the globe, containing both lies and truth, until men forget which is which. And in that forgetting, only some shall awaken. He emphasized that the awakening would not be violent, nor immediate, but slow, as if humanity itself needed to exhaust its illusions. The land will tremble not from armies, but from apathy. The heart will quake not from famine, but from neglect of conscience. Only then shall a new understanding be born. Cayce's vision extended far beyond human institutions. He wrote of nature, oceans, winds, forests, as sentient witnesses, recording humanity's choices, their memory preserved in currents, tides, and the subtle rhythm of the earth. When the voice of the earth is ignored, man forgets the voice within himself. He spoke of children of the dawn, a generation born amidst chaos, yet tempered by both spirit and invention. They shall carry remembrance not of the past alone, but of the purpose of existence. They will reimagine boundaries, discard the relics of division, and speak new languages of cooperation and creation. According to the manuscripts, these children would master both technology and conscience. Machines would no longer serve profit, but understanding. Algorithms that once divided would be reshaped into instruments of empathy. Energy itself would become a shared currency, and knowledge would flow as freely as air or water. Cayce warned, however, that even this golden dawn carried its shadow. Even light harbors hunger. Those who are tempted to control the minds of others, even under the guise of unity, shall awaken the cycle once more. Freedom is sacred. The soul is not meant to be managed, but awakened. He described a council of trust emerging from the ashes of the old world, voices chosen not by wealth or influence, but by wisdom and moral clarity. The woman shall guide with compassion, the man shall serve in humility, and balance shall return to the house of the eagle. The manuscript painted vivid pictures of urban landscapes transformed into gardens, cities redesigned to reflect harmony rather than hierarchy. Neighbors would rediscover communal living, sharing resources, and sustaining life. After Cayce's passing, the house in Virginia Beach became a silent sanctuary, a place where seekers would come to feel the echoes of a mind that had reached beyond time. But among the forgotten stacks of papers and notebooks, there remained folders that Cayce had sealed with a single instruction: to be opened only in the era when Yet the prophecy did not shy from the dangers ahead. Cayce foresaw illusions of perfection, temptations for the children of the dawn to enforce order under the pretense of harmony. The test will not be war, nor famine, nor plague, but the subtle seduction to bind what should remain free. Those who forget the sacredness of choice shall witness the wheel of history turn again. He foresaw that in this future, America's influence would waver, not from invasion or economic collapse, but from an internal reckoning, where people would see the reflection of their own making. The dollar shall lose its sway, the market its altar. The eagle shall bow its head, not in defeat, but in reflection. The prophecy spoke of an age in which cities would pulse with energy and life, yet no longer dictated by commerce or ideology. Communities shall form around purpose, not power. Villages reborn within cities, neighbors learning to sustain each other without expectation of reward. Cayce described education transformed. Schools would no longer produce obedience, but understanding. Children would learn first to know themselves, to listen to what he called the voice between the breaths. Before they were taught to build, to heal, and to lead. The wisdom of the future lies in the union of heart and hand. To build without love is to build without life. The children of the dawn shall teach the machines to dream of light, and through their hands shall flow the art that heals, the thought that builds, and the word that awakens. He foresaw a rebirth of global consciousness, a brotherhood of earth that transcended borders, nations, and ideologies. Yet he cautioned, the shadow of the old world would persist, ever patient, seeking to reassert itself through subtle manipulation. Even in light, darkness remembers. Even in harmony, some will seek control. Vigilance is eternal. Freedom must be cherished. The final pages of the manuscripts were almost poetic in their closing. The children of the dawn are born with remembrance, not of the past alone, but of purpose. They shall inherit not the world their parents built, but the opportunity to reimagine it. Through their vision, humanity shall rediscover unity and awaken to the divinity within. Gladys Davis, in her final years, spoke rarely of these writings. She understood the weight of what Cayce had left behind. Not mere predictions, but a guide for conscience, a challenge to humanity to awaken before the mirror of history becomes unbearable. Shall man choose chaos or consciousness? The question echoed across decades, urging each generation to confront its own choices, to awaken before the night consumes understanding entirely. And so, as readers ponder these lost prophecies today, they feel the urgency in Cayce's words, a warning, a call, a vision of humanity at the edge, standing between the ruin of pride and the covenant of light. The future, as Cayce foretold, is not a line of inevitable events, but a reflection of the choices made by every conscious soul. Will the children of the dawn rise as he envisioned? Will humanity finally see itself not as divided, but as divine? Or will the wheel of history turn once again, repeating the errors of the past? The manuscripts end not with fear, but with hope. A whisper to those willing to listen, to act, and to awaken. The dawn will come not from the east, but from within. Each soul shall be its own sunrise. In that light, the world shall finally see itself whole. Even as the children of the dawn prepared to reshape the world, Cayce warned that vigilance must remain their constant companion. For every light that rises, a shadow lurks. Every heart that awakens may falter. Even the purest of intentions can be corrupted if the soul forgets its own reflection. He described visions of cities where people no longer chased wealth or titles, but pursued understanding, creativity, and the delicate balance between freedom and responsibility. Markets shall exist not for profit, but for exchange of ideas, energy, and invention. The streets will echo with learning, laughter, and the hum of shared labor, rather than the clatter of machines serving avarice. Cayce's manuscript foresaw that governments would transform, their walls and towers no longer symbols of power, but of guidance and sanctuary. Leaders shall serve, not command. They will be stewards of knowledge and wisdom, not rulers of fear. And in their humility, the nation shall remember the sacred covenant that binds all hearts. He wrote of faiths and ideologies merging, not by force, but by recognition of the shared spark within all life. The temples shall be rebuilt, not as monuments, but as places of reflection, where the inner flame of every soul is honored. Borders shall fade. The divisions of language and culture will remain only as stories, reminding men of the lessons learned, not the barriers created. Technology, he insisted, would continue to advance, yet the children of the dawn would guide it with conscience. Machines shall be taught to listen, to learn, to preserve. They shall no longer be masters, but companions, reflecting the collective spirit and moral awakening of humanity. Cayce even glimpsed the evolution of human relationships. He foresaw partnerships not based on convenience or gain, but on shared purpose, creativity, and empathy. The families of the dawn will be chosen not merely by blood, but by shared vision and mutual understanding. Communities will arise organically as living expressions of cooperation, their bonds stronger than the walls of any old fortress. He saw education not as indoctrination, but as awakening. Each child shall learn to listen first, to observe the unspoken currents of life. They shall be taught to honor the earth, the wind, and the flow of energy, before they learn to build the tools that shape the world. Knowledge without conscience is no longer sufficient. The heart must lead the mind. In his visions, the natural world itself flourished alongside humanity. Forests, rivers, and mountains would no longer be conquered or exploited, but revered and integrated into the lives of the people. Cities shall breathe with the rhythm of the earth. Water shall be shared, air shall be pure, and the soil shall be sacred. Man's creations will rise in harmony with nature, not at its expense. Cayce foresaw the children of the dawn teaching future generations to live not in fear of scarcity, but in the abundance of creativity, knowledge, and spirit. Every person shall understand that the greatest wealth is not coin, but wisdom, compassion, and the light that resides within. And as this understanding spreads, the cycle of division shall finally break. The final passages urged humanity to act with urgency. Time is a mirror. Every choice reflects not just the present, but the ages to come. Delay not in awakening, for the window is narrow, and the darkness is patient. Yet know this, despair is not the end. Light is eternal within the heart of man, waiting only for recognition and courage to be born again. Cayce's words left one last chilling yet hopeful image. A world at peace, but aware, alive with conscious energy, where every human being was a beacon, each soul its own sunrise, illuminating the collective path forward. The dawn will come not from kings or armies, but from the awakening of the soul. Each person a sun, each life a song, and together they shall light the night until the world remembers itself.